So I have limited time today, mainly because my neighbor's child has discovered Frozen, and suddenly she started singing Let It Go and blaring it out of her little tiny, like a fake radio or a karaoke machine. So I'm really worried she might start because I started this very late. So welcome to my channel. I'm Kelly Marie Mills for Yoga Ayurveda Living. Here today I'm going to talk about introducing Ayurveda, which actually is a script I wrote for my podcast that I started during COVID. So I'm going to use the script as a guideline because otherwise I tend to waffle an awful lot, which shows that I have very high Vata, and I've had high Vata since I was quite young. I actually know what it relates to, and I'll tell you about that some other time. So today I wanted to cover Ayurveda because it's kind of the beginning of the end of me just using yoga as a tool for my students, and Ayurveda now I blend with yoga. So I consider the combination of Ayurveda and yoga as a path to soulful wellness. Ayurveda deals with all the goings on of the physical body, finding the ailment, seeing the root cause, and proposing remedies. So seeing the root cause is a huge thing in Ayurveda, and then proposing remedies to alleviate or even cure the problem if we can diagnose it early enough. And it can be just as simple as that. Yoga is a part of a treatment plan with Ayurveda almost always. And yoga itself doesn't necessarily mean you have to be doing the asana practice, but yoga in itself is more of a mind, body, spirit medicine, so that we can find a way to meet our sense of what spirit is to us. And it's just so vast, isn't it, what people believe in? But it's to come back to that basis of what do you believe in, what will sustain your heart and your movement forward in your life, however you hope to see it unfold. So I go on to talk about COVID-19 increasing our imbalances, mainly because we were all put into very compressed arena of life, which we weren't used to. But in that compression, anything that compresses us too much increases Vata, because Vata needs to move. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit because I want to tell you more about exactly what Vata is. Vata is the dosha that comes from air and space, or rather it comes from space and then air moves around within it. And so when we combine those two elements out of the five great elements, what we get is only movement. That's its main thing. That's its jam. That's what makes it happy. And if it doesn't move, it actually gets into a lot of trouble. It causes trouble and it creates problems for the other two doshas. And you may have heard of them. If you've heard of yoga, you might have heard of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is the medicine of life. So it's the knowledge of life, as in life in this material world, but also life in the subtle realms, and how we can manage to ride smoothly through all the worlds of our life. So with Vata being made of space and air, like I was saying, when it gets compressed, it has to move. So there was a lot of reaction when all of us were compressed in and during COVID-19. And so a lot of us were acting out, I suppose, like children that were kind of pushed into a space all on their own, and they didn't know what to do without any supervision. But we were given some guidelines. At least in Ireland, a lot of us were kind of so enclosed that we had very little spaces to go. Like 2 kilometers isn't really far to get outside of your home space. And some people literally couldn't go even further than even beyond their doors. So I describe Ayurveda as the medicine side of yoga, but of course it means a lot more than that. Ayurveda must have made up that saying, you are what you eat, because Ayurveda does focus an awful lot on our food. But what I discovered, because I was a yoga teacher first and then became an Ayurvedic therapist, was that Ayurveda is so intrinsic to yoga if you have the wherewithal to stick with both medicines. So I hardly ever think of my yoga practices without Ayurveda now. And one of the ways, if you are a yoga teacher or you're interested in yoga itself, is to really check out what the chakras mean, and how they can help you bring Ayurveda into your students' lives, but mainly your life first if you are doing such things like that. So Ayurveda really believes that what we take in is similar to what we give out. And so the more we take in things that are sattvic or things that are harmonious, the more we will find harmony within ourselves, and that is what comes out of us. Yoga has its own medicine, which some people may not have realized is different to Ayurvedic medicine. So yoga is the older sister to Ayurveda, and yoga had its own medicine, and it was a medicine for the spiritual aspirants, those that were actually studying yoga practices and developing yoga practices even deeper. And so they would have followed strict guidelines in their fasts for 40 days and 40 nights, and sometimes less and sometimes more. And they may have lived up in the mountains, they may not have. But the thing was that they were always trying to push their body into the boundaries so that they could discover the spirit and the mind, and how they could still return back to the material life without being imbalanced. But Ayurveda became really important when they realized that the people of India needed support as well, and that's a very, very tiny little aspect of it, but it was really about keeping everyone healthy and finding a medicine that worked for everyone, not just the spiritual aspirants that lead the country's heart. So Ayurveda was developed then as a whole body medicine for those who did yoga and those doing yoga practices, but also those outside of that spiritual aesthetic, the spiritual studies themselves. So Ayurveda began first by looking at the material body for those living in this world. But really, its deeper work is going into the subtle energies of what yoga can give us through its remedies. And so that's why when you talk about Ayurveda, you're talking about 5 different avenues of healing. And the one that most people are familiar with is the massage treatments, which I only do a few. The lifestyle of Ayurveda, or really it's the lifestyle that can help you to fulfill your life's dharma. So if we are, say we want to have a quiet life, but we kind of sleep late in the morning because we're out all night, it's not going to give us a quieter, more introspective life, because our circadian rhythm is out, or our doshic rhythm is out. So Ayurveda tries to give us tools to recalibrate our sleep system so that it feels more natural to go to bed early and wake early, which is what we try and do in Ayurveda. So it's not always applicable, because the modern world, there's work, people that work at night in the middle of the night and do so for long times. So it's just to find a way to navigate for them, and you do have to help them in different ways, but also trying to get them to find balance through their imbalanced lifestyle. And so remember that there's a fine line between balance and imbalance, but it's to come to terms with what can you navigate for your lifestyle. Ayurveda isn't really rigid in any form. And that was one of the things that I really liked about it, that it gives you choices. So you have the massage treatments, you have the lifestyle, you have yoga in all of its practices, then you have meditation, and then you have all of the self-care practices. And all 5 of those actually really kind of pull us into looking after ourselves, which is another practice of yoga in its own studies. and it's called self-study. So it's like we're turning everything inward and we're learning our own inner knowledge. So we start to listen to our own natural rhythm. And a lot of the stuff that I try to promote is coming back into your natural rhythm. And when we come into our natural rhythm, we actually find that we don't need to work as hard, that things start to come easier, that there's less stress around us because we're not stressed within us. So yeah, I may not have needed all the sheets after all. But I am on a timeline because actually today is the 18th of September, and the eclipse was last night, and whatever it's done to the weather in Ireland, we had a not a great summer. I was going to say something else, but not a great weather-wise summer. So today is very hot. Yesterday I didn't go swimming, but today I'm going to go swimming, so I only have another few minutes. The cold hard fact is that understanding sometimes what ails us doesn't necessarily make the healing elements comfortable, but eventually they do become comfortable. So first we look at nutrition is included in lifestyle and also separated from it. You can add it and remove it, but what I like about the food side of it is it's not just talking about the food that we eat every day, but actually it's talking also about herbs and spices, so things called spice therapy that we use. And the spices then are thought of even the strongest and most powerful essence of food, because it's coming from the seed. Often they come from the seed of the plant, which means that it has even more sattvic elements in it. So we do try and eat sattvic foods through the Ayurvedic practices, but not quite as many as we would if we were in the yoga field of healing system. In the yoga field of healing system, everything is quite restricted and limited, and there's a purpose to that. It's once again trying to sustain the body, but really to expand the mind. And that's about all I really know about that. But what I do know is that the Ayurvedic nutrition and lifestyle is much more about finding ways to combine that in the modern world with everything that we have going on. So the main rule that I stick with at all times is ahimsa, mainly because ahimsa gives us this platform to live our life to our best ability through, whether you need supports like a screen with you while you're doing a talk on YouTube, but also that we can use ahimsa to really say it's okay to not feel great today, and that I'm going to have toast instead of actually having something much more nourishing. It's to look at our life in the aspect of from the outside in. And so if it was our best friend, would we give out to them if they did something that may not serve their long-term digestion, speed it up as fast that the health wouldn't be as quick? And no, we wouldn't, because in living through daily life is difficult, and it's difficult when in the yoga aspect, when they're doing these stringent practices, they're very supported. They have people helping to guide them and support them and nourish them throughout these practices. So we're living our lives like working jobs, trying to make enough money, get everything sorted out and live our best lives and plan for our travels. And then we have these days when we're like really, really tired. So I really work with the things that kind of bring us back to center, trying to remind everyone that sleeping is so important, and getting the right amount of sleep, trying not to wake too early, but then sometimes waking early can be really good for us depending on what our imbalance is. Lifestyle then has, I think, one of the biggest benefits long term, and that's because whatever we do every day actually has a tendency to heal us or to make us stay the same. So if we continue to, like I'll say, meditate. I know a lot of people aren't interested in meditating, and it makes no difference to me, but I do know that meditation does help me feel better, feel lighter, stress less, um, and also be less upset about past happenings. And so in that way I realize how good it is, and when I don't do it, I notice that I have this kind of bubbling up of discomfort. And so the more I do meditation, the more I feel better, the more I don't even recall the things that kept coming back. One of the better things about meditation, I was just saying it to one of my friends, was that you get these really wild memories that you thought you were wondering, was it actually a dream or not? And then you know that it was actually true. It's just that it came up in your teens, and you're like, God, that's really random that I remembered that. And you could remember it so distinctly. I do find that meditation does tend to do that. So it's, what is it that you can cultivate from today onwards, even if it's just a minute of sitting in stillness, breathing. Even if it's just that moment of finding that silence, whether you're in a really busy office or standing at the kettle. And I do remember what it was like with a household of children and how busy it gets. So I am extremely compassionate to families trying to bring in silent time or quiet time, or even a few minutes for themselves. So yoga, because it's a part of its own medicine, so it has even more power in the Ayurvedic side, because its own medicine is so incredible to still our mind, and that is one of its purposes, is to still the mind so that we could see clearly. And in that mindful aspect, it begins to still our heart. So, if we've been upset by things in our lives, that stillness of the mind actually opens the heart. And that's one of its purposes in yoga as well. So Ayurvedic massage is another way of, I'm just going through the list of things because I just forget. Ayurvedic massage is a way of healing the body from the outside in. And in my office, I use only organic Ayurvedic oils. A lot of them come from Ayurveda Pura, and I have another company. I do not have a company. And Essential Ayurveda in the UK also has really lovely oils, but since Brexit, it's harder to get them. But the Ayurveda Pura, I do. So the organic oils you use on different body types, and you use them because they each have their own essence for the dosha that is in balance or out of balance. So we call them Ayurvedic medicated oils, but they're not medicated in any sense, except for that they're whole-based plants from India that are placed into oil and water put into it. Sometimes water is put into it, sometimes not, sometimes it's just oil. And then it's all boiled together for like a day, and then the plants are sieved out and the oil is left to sit. And then more oil is put in and combined, and then that's the oil for. It could be ashwagandha oil, it could be vata oil, it could be pitta oil, kapha oil. There's so many different oils, but I only do a few of them currently. So these practices, I've modified them since COVID, and a lot of people have found them just amazing, the modifications, but eventually we come down to the whole body massage, which I learned with my own teacher, and I also learned from Ayurveda Pura, which is Dr. Deepa Apta's work in the UK. She's actually in Greenwich. She has a lovely Ayurvedic spa in Greenwich. Ayurveda actually means wisdom. Veda means wisdom and Ayur means life, and so combining them together makes Ayurveda. And it's said in all different ways depending on the area of India that you are in. But with this life knowledge, you really need to look at it and use it more like preventative medicine, but it can reel back imbalances as well. So panchakarma is something that a lot of people know about, and that's actually kind of the stronger practices where you go into a clinic and you get fully supported, you get fed, you get massage twice a day, you get other treatments, you know, you probably get eye treatments, back treatments, belly treatments. And these are specific into relieving the parts of the body that are most affected by the out of balance dosha, which I'll be talking about in my next chat. And so Panchakarma is the 5 actions. They don't use all 5 actions on each person, and it is quite stringent. But the thing that you need to do before you start a Panchakarma is to start a Purvakarma, which is what I do on the equinox courses that I offer. I practice Purvakarma, and it's for 33 days in the autumn, and it's a little bit less time in the spring. The autumn is the best time to fully detox. And what we do is we reel back on all the things that we know don't work for us, and then I investigate a little bit further and try and find out what is really going on with your system, and trying to give you then alternatives to things. But to note that most of the things, the flagrant things, the things that stand out the most in the modern world that are very destructive to our system is sugar, unless it's natural sugar. Coffee, alcohol, tobacco, they're like the worst. And of course, substances, you know, specific substances that are just not good for any of the dosha balance. And the rule is, just like any parent would say nowadays, is moderation is the best way. Overindulgence often leads to more overindulgence, which is a real personality mind thing. So I think I'm going to leave it there, because I've probably worn you all out, and I just want to thank you for any attention you could give. If you got anything from this little talk, if you just click the like button and subscribe, it would be a big help. I'll be coming here hopefully every few days now. It's kind of the start. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you soon, and may we all live in kindness, and may peace be at our every step. Namaskar.